special sermon today because it really, we say everything is timing in life, and it really is amazing that Queen Elizabeth died just a couple of weeks ago, and this Queen of the world gave us an opportunity to look into what majesty on earth looks like. But what I'm examining here is what would it look like for us to have a king? Because the whole Rosh Hashanah is about coronating the King of Heaven as our king. So let's see, I called it long live the Queen, long live the King. With the death and funeral of Queen Elizabeth II this week, hosts of people gathered, well, that was a couple of weeks ago, gathered around her coffin, waiting in never-ending queues just to get a glimpse of her majesty, even if just for her spirit. It was the most watched event in human history. The Queen of the world had passed away. People saw her as a symbol of monarchy, but also as a mother and grandmother, the head of a family, deeply rooted in history. She was a constant in an ever-changing world, who extended way beyond her entitlement. It's really hard to be cynical about any aspect of this historic moment. As we said, it gave us a glimpse into majesty on earth as I would say, a reminder of the majesty in heaven. Surely there are those who do not love what she stood for, those who see the crown as a symbol of a dominating power, exploiting other peoples through imperialism and colonialism. Even though the funeral was a religious service at a church, the procession and everything in between was a display of military power. After all, the Queen's coffin was carried on a gun carriage to Westminster Abbey. So, as Jews, we see the dichotomy, the majesty and the war. Jews have a complicated history with Britain, the first country to expel Jews from Western Europe in 1290. On the other hand, the state of Israel came out of the British mandate over Palestine. Shortly after the establishment of the state of Israel, my own family walked through Yemen to arrive to Aden, the British refugee cities at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, to then be flown to Israel. So the question is, so would Jews who intimately experienced the double-edged sword of the Royal British Empire still want the kingship of the Messiah that we pray for his coming every day to resemble the British model? Is it even possible to convince the future generation that it is beneficial altogether? Perhaps there is a different way to unify the people and to create sacredness of something. So what would Judaism have to say about royalty today? So when the people of Israel demanded a king from the prophet Samuel, we just read about the prophet Samuel, who was, as Chuck said, the last prophet, because after that, it was a king. The what? A judge, I'm sorry. A judge, and then the king started. Moses said to the people, I know that there'll come a time when you'll want to be like everybody else, all the nations, and you'll demand a king. So he really put restrictions on what that king would look like. And we'll get to that. So Samuel explained to the people that the king will cost them dearly. Why? Because the king would increase horses, a symbol of military and might. Because horses are expensive, the king would increase your burden, take you and your children to serve him, essentially bringing you back to Egypt. That's what Moses said. At the end, you'll work so hard to keep the horses of the king that you would be slaves in one way or another and go back to Egypt, not just because of that burden, but because of the hierarchy. It will create a hierarchy clearly with all the power that the commoners are not going to share the same place. So do we want that? So personal story myself, in 2003, I went to London just on a short business trip. And my parents used the opportunity to meet me in London, and we just walked in it. We didn't even know the timing of it. But God really blessed me with this experience, because we turned the corner and all of a sudden we see the whole pageantry, the queen, the princesses, the princes, everybody with the carriages and the horses, the whole thing. And we didn't even have a camera. So it was back then. So we were really upset that we can't take a picture of it. But people said, well, she's going to go open the parliament. That was the day she went to open parliament, and she'll be back. So in the meantime, we went and got a disposable camera and we took pictures on the way back. But I have to say, experiencing in person, and I remember the most powerful experience was not even seeing the queen. It was definitely, oh yeah, seeing the queen. And all the royal family and the carriages and all that, beautiful. But the horses, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of horses. It was amazing. All, of course, beautiful and well kept. But then, I thought about it, and that Queen Elizabeth, and as they were talking about during the funeral and everything, that was her favorite thing. Horses were her favorite thing. So there's something about a king on earth, someone with this much power. How did Moses know, thousands of years ago, that it doesn't matter? When you have that much power, that's where you're going to end up, with a lot of horses, whether they're horses, physical horses, or horses in mind. Why? You're laughing because you like horses too.
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. Yeah. So somehow, it gets there. So this event, which is steeped in tradition, is reminiscent of the meticulous details required even when we had a king in ancient time, and when we had the temple, and everything was prescribed, and everything was according to the ceremonial rules. So, as much as I appreciate and love the pageantry, the pomp and ceremony, I'm not sure that I would like this to come back. In the time when they demanded Samuel to have a king, he succumbed to it because that's what the people wanted. And he looked for a king, and we know that, just like in the British royalty, there were good kings and bad kings. And it's hard to predict those things, and it's a big chance that the people are taking. So, what we say is that after the destruction of the temple, the second temple, when the Sanhedrin decided that they're moving their operation from Jerusalem to Yavne, and became more of a Beit Midrash, a place of learning, rather than a place of these strict rules of one, in a sense, the Kohanim were royalty for us. So after that destruction, really, the rabbis took that kingship, that hierarchy, and gave back the power to the people, and made it really egalitarian in many ways. Originally, we also had the three arms of government, in a sense, the governing bodies. We had the king, we had the high priest, and we had the prophet. And two of those were religious, of course, leadership, the high priest and the prophet. But none of them, just one of them was a totally egalitarian, in the sense that even women were prophetess. So we have, in a sense, what the rabbis did. they brought the model to the prophecy. Instead of taking the model of the religious leadership from the temple, they brought it to the prophet. So everybody can share that. So I would say that in conclusion, that what we have coordinated for thousands of years now, and I really don't think that if the Messiah came in today, we would want him to look, as much as I really love all the pageantry, and for England it works, but I really don't think the Jewish people would ever agree to this model again. And I think we're happy with what we have. I mean, it would be nice to be more together and united, but around something else. And what is that something else? Is that nothing, the no thing, the God who's no thing. That's the king that we coronate. And of course, God has a queen. The king has a queen, and the queen for us is Shabbat. Again, something that it's silent, it's no work, it's no thing. We come together around that, and that is the most stable thing for the Jewish people. So I would say, long live Shabbat the queen, and long live God the king. Shana Tova.